So here we're just going to go through a ton of examples, well, not a ton, specifically 7 examples of how you solve problems with factoring. And some of these are already factored for you, but all of them have something weird about them, generally, that you've just got to be prepared for. So the best thing to do is actually to pause the video, try to work these problems out on your own, and then only come back to either check your answer or figure out how to make progress when you get stuck. And you should be stuck for like a solid 4 or 5 minutes before you come back and check, because you really want to make sure that you've prepared yourself to think about all these different kinds of options. But that said, let's pretend that you did that. And now I'll work these problems out for you, because it'll be awesome. Okay, so here's the first one. Now, this is a trick, kind of, because what a lot of students will do is they'll first say, oh, so that means that x equals 4 and then this equals 4, which is no way true. So think about it. To avoid the common mistake, if x times y equals 4, does that mean that either x or y has to be 4? And the answer, hopefully, is no, because x could be 2 and y could be 2, and so neither of them is 4, so this is in no way a good answer. So when you're factoring, the only way the trick works, and if you want to call it a trick, the only way the trick works is if everything is equal to 0. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make a giant note like this on your note somewhere. So the only way this works is everything is equal to 0. Everything, 100%, fundamentally, in no way is this optional, must equal 0 before you can do any kind of problem with factoring. Okay? So here, you might say, all right, well, then I'm going to make it equal 0, so I'll subtract 4 from both sides, but I'm still stuck with something really, really ugly. And again, I can't say that this is 0 or this is 0, because remember, everything has to be multiplied together. This doesn't work with subtraction, it doesn't work with addition. It only works with multiplication and division, and it only works if everything is equal to 0. So remember, the whole point of math, and especially in algebra, is to try to take a problem that you don't know how to solve and turn it into something that you do know how to solve. So I'm totally stuck here, and I don't know what to do or where to go. So what I really want to do from here, I'm not sure why I did that, it's fun. What I really want to do from here is just start messing with it. So maybe I'll say, well, this x is really bothering me, so let me just distribute it, and if it turns out I didn't need to, I can always pull it back out again later. This actually is a really good strategy, though, because if I distribute the x, I've got 2x squared minus 7x minus 4 equals 0. Now this should actually look like something you can factor. So again, we've turned something we didn't know how to solve, something we couldn't solve, and turned it into something that we did know how to solve. So I'm going to factor this out. Here I've got 2x and x. And my options are 4 and 1, or 2 and 2. I don't know why that's not 2 and 2. And since this is a negative, that means my signs have to be a positive and a negative. So one of these guys is going to be a 2, one of these guys is going to just be an x. And now I'm going to play around with it and try this. And I'll go 4 and 1. And if I multiply this out, I get plus 8x minus x, which gives me plus 7x, which is good, it's the wrong sign. So that means that all I have to do is flip my sign. So instead of a negative and a positive, I'm going to go positive and negative. And again, I can do this, but you probably shouldn't. Don't erase stuff, at least not for note-taking, so that you can come back and see, oh, I got this wrong, and this is how I fixed it. So outer, inner gives me the right middle term, so I'm good. Okay, now since I have that this times this equals 0, that means that either, and you don't have to write either, I'm just doing it because I love complete sentences, even in math, either 2x plus 1 equals 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. And so really now all I need to do is solve. 2x equals negative 1, or x equals 4. Divide both sides by 2, and get x equals negative 1/2, or x equals 4. And you might write this either like that, or depending on who your professor is, or what software you're doing this on, a lot of times you'll just write it like that. Okay? Here's the next problem. This one's a little fun as well. In this problem, the first thing that you're going to want to do is go ahead and factor out a 2. And in fact, I'm going to factor out a -2. So if I pull out a -2, I've got x squared, make sure you get the signs here right, plus 2x minus 15. Getting the signs right is really what makes this kind of a harder problem. So I have -2, and now I recognize that I can factor out the thing in the middle. The x squared means it's an x and x. This is 15 and 1, or 3 and 5. That means it's a plus and a minus. It doesn't matter where I put them for this particular problem, and since I'm looking for a 2, I'm pretty sure I'm just going to go with the 5 and the 3. But I'll check to be sure. My outer terms, ooh, I did it wrong. What do I know? The outer terms are minus 5x. The inner terms are 3x. That gave me a -2. That actually wasn't intentional. So that means my sign's wrong. So that means I just have to flip. So instead of a plus and a minus, go a minus and a plus. So I'll try again. Outer, 5x. Inner, minus 3x. That gives me positive 2x, so that's good. Alright, so now I know either -2 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0, or x plus 5 equals 0. Okay, this is nonsense. Disregard. And this was in a previous lecture why you disregard that. But basically, I mean, it's just not an option, so you just ignore it. I'm going to add a 3 to both sides here, subtract a 5 to both sides here. So I've got x equals 3, or x equals -5. Like that. Good? Alright. That's what everybody got, right? Now, this might be another problem where you're not exactly sure where to start. You might decide to start by trying to distribute the 5x minus 1, but don't do that. This is already partially factored for you. So the trick here is to recognize that this guy is already ready to go, but this guy over here, needs to be factored into 2 more terms. Okay, and really the trick here is just figuring out what they are. So this is a 2x and an x. This is a plus, so it's either a plus and a plus, or a minus and a minus. But since this is a plus, that means these are pluses. And eventually I'm going to stop writing these out, but I'm just writing them out for the moment because I'm assuming we're still kind of new at factoring. So one's a 2x, one's an x, and they're both positive. So here's what I have to choose from, either 1 and 18, 2 and 9, or 3 and 6. And after staring at it forever, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to check. My outer terms are plus 12x. My inner terms are plus 3x. So that's plus 15x, and that's right. Okay. So that means that either 5x minus 1 is 0, 2x plus 3 is 0, or x plus 6 is 0. And now all I have to do is solve. And I'm just doing this so I don't have to click my pen color constantly. Bunk. 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 Divide both sides by 5. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 1/5. X equals -3 halves. X equals -6. So those are my options. I don't really care what order you put them in. Some people might, but I don't. There you go. Alright. Now let's try this one. This is the same problem that we had on a previous one, which is basically you just want to make sure that you are not equating anything until you've got everything equal to 0. So 4x squared minus 28x plus 49 equals 0. Now I'm ready to factor. I can't pull a 4 out because I can't take a 4 out of here. So that means I'm really stuck. Like this. I've actually got a lot of options here. This guy can be 2x and 2x, or he can be 4x and 1x. at least I know, because this is positive and this is negative, that both the signs are negative. 49, I've got lots of options, but essentially it's all going to come out to, hopefully, I'm eventually going to happen upon this factorization. And I'll check. So the outer terms are minus 14x, the inner terms are minus 14x, and that's giving me negative 28x, which is correct. Okay. So I think that's probably the hardest part of this problem, is actually coming up with the factoring for it. So again, add 7 to both sides. And you might not be showing all your work, but I'm just showing it because there might be people who aren't. And it's really important that if you're starting to get the wrong answer, it's probably because you're skipping steps. Well, not probably. There's a lot of reasons you'd be getting the wrong answer. But it's possible that you could be skipping steps, and that's why I show every step at this stage. So since both my answers are the same, I only need to list it once. Now on to number 5. Here we want to make sure you look at all these and you say, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull out a 2 and an x. So if I pull out a 2x, I've got x squared minus 2x minus 15. It's kind of similar to another problem we did. So I'm going to factor out these guys here, like that. Yeah, this is almost exactly like a problem we did before. So you should have this down. X minus 5, x plus 3. And the difference with this is you actually have a third answer. So this, or this, or this, I believe. Yes. And so that means that x is equal to 0, 5, or negative 3. And again, I recommend that you go ahead and write everything out so you can see exactly what's going on. Every once in a while people will come up with a 2, x equals 2 out of here, x equals 1/2. Remember, if I divide both sides by 2, 0 divided by 2 is still 0. If I have nothing and I split it amongst all my friends, we still have nothing. So just make sure that this is all making sense to you. Here's a fun one. I actually gave you a hint. So we like to throw different kinds of problems at you just to give you the exact same problem but make it seem like we're doing something different. We're really not. And this is a perfect example. If you get a problem that says find the x-intercepts and people are like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. What you need to remember, see if you've got a graph. Remember your x-intercepts are here, right, because they're along the x-axis. Now, if I made up points for this, this one might be negative 6, 0. This one might be negative 3, 0. This one might be 4, 0. This one might be 8, 0. But what they all have in common is that the y element is 0. So if you have an equation like this, really what they want you to do, if you're trying to find the x-intercept, is to solve whenever y is equal to 0. And that actually gives you your x-intercepts. And if you need to rewrite it in a different way just to make it make more sense to you, that's perfectly acceptable. But you're just going to solve the problem the exact same way. X minus 4 minus 1. And that should do it. So x is equal to 4 or 1. And that's all you need to do for that problem. Is just list that. Some teachers might have you list the actual intercept points. But I think on like MyMathLab and stuff like that, they just want it like that. So then we gave you one more problem just to make sure you got it and could remember. So find the x-intercepts of this. It's basically to solve 35x squared plus 3x minus 2 is equal to 0. And the only reason I rewrote it is just I can see it better in my head if everything's on the left and the 0 is on the right. This one's a little bit harder to factor. Pull these guys down a bit more. Because we've got, that's kind of weird, isn't it? This guy here can be a 35x and a 1x, or a 7x and a 5x. This guy here can be a 2 and a 1. This guy's negative and positive. So I know one guy's negative, I know one guy's positive. Just going to guess a 2 and a 1. And I'm not going to go with the 35 because that looks like the number's going to be way too big, so I'm just going to throw these in here and see what happens. Outer minus 7x, inner plus, oh man, I actually did not do that on purpose. I'm just amazing. Yay! So that actually worked out. I was really, really, really lucky. Lucky. I'd like to say it was skill, but it wasn't. It was arbitrary. In fact, theoretically, you would think that I would want to make a mistake so I could correct it, but, you know, I guess just not an option. So now we have the choices that either 7x plus 2 is 0 or 5x minus 1 is 0. And again, I strongly encourage you just to work these out, just to make sure, because you'd hate to get the factoring right and then mess up on the solving for x part, because that should be the easy part compared to all the mess that you had to do to get here. You know what I mean? So don't ruin a perfectly good answer by being in a hurry. So x is equal to -2/7 or 1/5.